Part 21. Global Copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 201. Not only Luzaoki was shocked, but also Li Laban looked envious. He was obviously shocked by the appearance of this ex machina at her peak level. But Lu Yang's purpose in calling her was definitely not to show off that he had a perfect wife. Ex machina moved her body, her eyes glowed faintly, and her lips slightly opened. The target has been locked. Attack. As she spoke, her already cold expression became even more murderous, and her left hand surged like liquid metal, forming a cannon in an instant. The muzzle of the gun lit up with a faint blue light, aiming at Zhang Yang, who was wreaking havoc among the mechanical army. Wait a minute. Lu Yang quickly stopped Ex Machina's attack and said hurriedly, "Switch to melee mode. Receive." The muzzle light of the changing muzzle of Ex Machina's arm went out, and she suddenly jumped into the air and began to transform. In the blink of an eye, the cold armor covered the girl's perfect curves, and the powerful power engine propelled Ex Machina towards Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang did not dodge in the face of the rapidly attacking Ex Machina. He raised his arms high, and the muscles on them bulged high, as if he had gathered powerful strength. Ex Machina's flying straight punch collided with Zhang Yang's raised arm. Boom! The strong shockwave knocked away all the robots coming up from all around. One person and one machine girl fight each other. The speed was very fast. Even with Luzaoki's eyesight, it was somewhat difficult to see the details. In other words, the eyes saw it, but the brain couldn't process it. But Luzaoki also noticed the details between each other. Ex Machina's joints have propulsion engines. Every time she makes a move, not only does her body twist her joints to exert force, but more importantly, the engines behind her joints provide a steady stream of acceleration. This greatly enhances her attack power and speed. As a human being, Zhang Yang naturally does not have such a thing. What he relies entirely on is the control of his own body. For example, if he wanted to punch, he would step back and step forward, twist his waist and bend over, and finally use his strength on his shoulders to punch out. Basically, all the strength of the body is mobilized to complete such an action. For another example, when he blocks the opponent's attack, he first turns his fist into a palm, follows the opponent's strength to catch the move, and then deflects the opponent's attack sideways, while the force he needs to withstand is eliminated layer by layer by the twisting of his body. Don't look at it being described so simply now. But Zhang Yang launched nearly 100 attacks within a few seconds. This does not include his blocking when parrying the opponent. This means that he needs to process the details of his movements thousands of times every second. Only in this way can all the movements be performed smoothly and the strength can be mobilized to parry and counter-attack the opponent. Not even Luzaoki can do such an exaggerated thing. Luzaoki observed for a long time and finally came to only one conclusion. In fact, he does not always calculate how to exert force and how to respond to the enemy's next attack every time he attacks. Instead, he imprinted every move he made into instinct and muscle memory, and his brain only needed to know what he wanted to do. The body will naturally launch an attack. Sharp. Luzaoki silently gave him a thumbs up. A few rounds of crackling. Ex Machina relied on her advanced equipment to fight Zhang Yang to no avail. Luzaoki finally saw a trace of impatience on the face of this man who always had a smile. He shouted, and a strange light flashed in his hand. Zhang Yang finally activated his skills. Everyone in the audience stared intently. He raised his hands and directly grabbed the calf that Ex Machina kicked from the side. This time, he did not resolve the force, but forcefully absorbed all the damage. Instead, his hands also grasped Ex Machina's legs tightly. Hey! The light in Zhang Yang's hand boomed, lifting the entire Ex Machina high with unparalleled power. Bend back and throw back. Boom! Ex Machina was hit hard on the ground by him. Just this one blow. Let this beautiful ex machina be torn apart. I finally found out that this thing can't be beaten to death or broken. Luzioki was also stunned when she saw this scene. Pain. It hurt so much. He had completely broken free at this moment, striding towards the mostly repaired ex machina, his whole body filled with the energy of the explosion. But how can these small robots be Zhang Yang's opponents? At the same time, the other robots rushed toward Zhang Yang crazily as if they had received some order. Although he was caught off guard, the little robot outnumbered him and pinned him down among the machines. Zhang Yang stood up, and the robots around him were knocked back by the shockwave emitted by his move. How come this person doesn't know how to show mercy to women? And these hands were the ex machina who was smashed to pieces by him. This wasn't over yet. Zhang Yang ignored ex machina's resistance at all, raised her struggling body and thrust it towards the ground again. Hateful. Then comes the third shot. Boom. His silver face frowned slightly. Just when the third impact was about to happen, ex machina suddenly twisted around. However, something unexpected happened. Boom. Luzioki quietly covered her chest. All the robots were instantly shaken and flew away. Just when his face showed a bright smile that was about to win, he suddenly felt a tightness in his ankle, as if he was caught by something. Zhang Yang defended from the left to the right, but lost his flexible positioning and was still entangled by the robot. He was soon submerged in an almost endless stream of mechanical frenzy. Then, with lightning speed and effortless speed, he wrapped his body around Zhang Yang's arm. Boom. I go. T-1000. He was only 10 steps away from Liu Yang, and there was no obstacle in front of him. How could you crush a person's head with such a beautiful robot? Ex Machina's broken body turned into a pool of metallic liquid that gathered in the middle, and her originally smashed head gradually returned to its original appearance. At this moment, his hands had gradually transformed into a pair of shackles, tightly restricting his lower body in place and unable to move. I saw him fiercely grabbing the head of Ex Machina, which had not been completely repaired, and driving towards the ground with the momentum of Gong Gong hitting Mount Buzhu. A pair of small mechanical arms is locking him firmly. This body seems to have no joints and is reversed 180 degrees, from back to front to front. Zhang Yang's blow was fierce. Although it hit Ex Machina, most of the force was absorbed by him. He looked down and couldn't help but be a little surprised. But the next second, he just roared, and his manic energy spread out. Global copy. My talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 202. Zhang Yang planned to tear it off from himself and throw it aside. But he didn't expect that this thing turned into a piece of dog skin plaster, which stuck to his body and couldn't be pulled off no matter what. Good guy. You are just playing here to use softness to overcome strength. Luzioki also laughed. Ex Machina has completely given up her human form and turned into a pool of metallic liquid adsorbed on the surface of Zhang Yang's pale silver body. While hindering his actions, it also left him helpless. Do you want to knock it off? But when Zhang Yang grabbed it with his hands, it turned into liquid and flowed to other places. It could even be divided into several pieces and attached to his body. You said you should ignore it? But Zhang Yang's every move was restricted by it, and his strength and speed were a bit slower than before. Moreover, if Zhang Yang hadn't used energy to protect his body, it would have even wanted to give Zhang Yang access to his body. Understand the structure of his body from the outside in. Seeing this move, Luzioki also tightened her anus and felt chills all over her body. Good guy. Isn't this too hellish? Horrible. Really scary. Just when Zhang Yang and Ex Machina were entangled, Liu Yang was finally ready. It was impossible for him to have been hiding behind the mechanical army for so long without doing anything. Luzioki saw that he had been carving something on the ground, as if he was preparing a special move. As expected. As he let out a long breath, he slowly stood up from the ground, staring at John Yang, who was still fighting endlessly in the wave of robots, and said in a low voice, "The battle is over." As soon as the statement came out, a brilliant shockwave spread across the entire venue. The robots affected by this shockwave stopped moving, including Ex Machina, who has always relied on John Yang, is no exception. Finally he grabbed it and tore it off from his body. But the next moment, John Yang's expression completely changed before he could even relax. Because under his feet, there was a huge alchemy circle. And he also felt an extremely strong potential firmly fixing him in place, unable to move at all. All the robots on the scene started to move. This time, instead of fighting, they flew into the sky and began to twist and reorganize under the influence of the alchemy formation. Including the damaged robots that had been dismantled by John Yang and Digi, who had not yet returned to human form, were all pulled into the air. In the stunned expressions of everyone, a huge fist slowly formed in the air, and its arm gently swung, aiming at John Yang, who could not move. John Yang's face suddenly turned livid. "Wow," Lu Zioqi also exclaimed. This is clearly Gaia Jiabo fist. What kind of alchemy are you doing? It's basically a job change to the mechanical war god, right? The robotic arm takes shape very quickly, almost in a moment, and has a considerable scale. Then he hit John Yang hard with the power of overturning the world. Boom. The entire robotic arm is estimated to be more than 10 meters high and weighs more than 100 tons. This is combined with the acceleration of gravity and the acceleration of the power engine behind. The picture is so beautiful. Lu Zioqi was a little afraid to look at it. The fist slowly raised, turning into a point of light and disappearing in mid-air. And where the fist was covered, a big pit appeared. The martial arts arena was damaged for the first time. In the big pit, a man with a silver metallic luster all over his body was lying in it with his upper body naked and the word big written on it. 1. Lu Yang couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief when he saw John Yang lying in the pit without responding for a long time. But his expression froze in the next second. Because John Yang slowly stretched out his hand, turned over and crawled out of the pit. While climbing, he complained, "It's a good sparring, how can you kill me?" Lu Yang. Lu Zioqi also expressed admiration for his defense. It has to be said that even now, he uses his own skills to stack up his defense to a level that he doesn't even know how high it is. But I definitely didn't dare to take the attack just now. This is not something that can be resisted. Even if you can resist it, you can't resist it forcefully. Sure enough, the adventurers who can enter Takeo University have more or less abnormal abilities. That is even more of a perversion among perversions. Hey, these two words seem to be out of harmony. Happy. John Yang shook his head. Fortunately, I won't die. I just have broken bones all over my body, dislocated internal organs, and difficulty breathing. Classmate Lu, please help John Yang with his treatment. But the light was fleeting. Lu Yang. Snort. Everyone, back off, I'm going to start showing off. After saying that, he had put on his clothes and slowly stretched his waist. Huh. As he spoke, he glanced at Lu Zioqi and said deliberately, I don't know if there is any kind person who sees me so pitiful and helps me to treat her. It's not like me, I have to change my clothes after every fight. Lu Zioqi. Anyway, since you said so, I will reluctantly take action. John Yang also touched his body with a surprised look on his face. Hearing this, John Yang released his natural ability, restored his original appearance, took out a coat from the storage item and put it on. He asked in a low voice, I just struck a bit hard, are you okay? The others all turned their attention to him. See what I do? Lu Yang looked at him eagerly, with a hint of weakness on his pretty face. While putting it on, he shook his head and sighed, it's still great for you, not a single hair fell out after the fight. When Lu Yang heard what he said, he couldn't tell the truth from the lie. He couldn't help but feel a little at a loss. He subconsciously looked up at the only person present who knew how to treat. Lu Yang took the initiative to admit defeat and ended the battle, and his whole person seemed to have changed back from his previous fierce and fanatical state. Everyone felt that the surroundings became brighter. Lu Zhaoqi drew out her dagger and pointed slightly at Zhang Yang, who was moaning innocently. And those who can stand out among so many perverts and be selected to participate in global competitions. Looking at the way that guy is jumping around, how does he look like he is happy? The stars twinkle. Lu Zhaoqi was happy. Lu Zhaoqi. The bones all over his body were crackling, as if he had just been hammered, which was a bit uncomfortable. Lu Zhaoqi took the initiative to turn off the effect. Lu Yang looked at his hands and found that his condition had completely recovered. A beam of light descended from the sky, shrouding Zhang Yang in it, and even Lu Yang on the stage was included. This silly look is quite cute. Zhang Yang had climbed out of the pit and asked Lu Yang with his hands on his hips, "Do you want to fight again?" He shook his head and said dejectedly, "If I don't fight, I can't break your defense, so I will admit defeat." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 203. Zhang Yang's surprise was not without reason. Although his talent gave him nearly 100 times more defense than ordinary adventurers, it also made his injuries more than 10 times more difficult to heal than others. The injuries that could be cured by normal healing techniques turned into difficult diseases that could only be healed by relying on his own recovery power. But Lu Zhaoqi's secret technique was completely different, and he easily repaired the damage he suffered, even though he only suffered a little superficial damage. In other words, it filled up him all at once. That's great. I have to say that when fighting, it is indeed reassuring to have a nanny behind you who can help you replenish your health at any time. Thank you. Lu Yang also looked at Lu Zhaoqi gratefully. He just raised his leg and took a step forward, but stepped on a stone. He couldn't help but tilted his body and fell onto his back on the spot. Director Hu. 4 teammates left. After today's round, Director Hu did not ask to continue sparring. Instead, he announced the end of today's training and asked everyone to go back and digest today's gains. Lu Zhaoqi could see that the girl with glasses, Lin Qingqing, was a little disappointed, and the eyes she looked at him were still not very friendly, which could be said to be full of provocation. But Lu Zhaoqi didn't care much. Although this little girl's strength is indeed impressive, to me, Mr. Lu, it is not worth mentioning. Provoke me? Snort. The worm shakes the tree. Instead, it was Lu Yang's poor appearance that caught his attention. For the next period of time, Lu Zhaoqi watched helplessly as he fell on the ground while walking, choked when drinking water, and was attacked by bird droppings while standing under a tree. Although these are not fatal problems. But I have to sigh, this luck is really amazing. He and Mr. Lu are simply two extremes. As a son of heaven, he often picks up money when he goes out. When he opens a box, he will definitely get something good. Even the amount of materials dropped is much higher than that of ordinary people. He didn't know how long the side effects of his talent would last. Lu Zhaoqi guessed that it had something to do with the extent to which he used his talent. He used it during the previous demonstration, and he just performed a flat throw on the martial arts field. But now after 4 battles, it is obvious that his bad luck will last longer and become more frequent. The reason why Lu Zhaoqi pays so much attention to him is naturally not because he thinks that he has a pretty face, and even that is acceptable. Actually, he is not interested in Lu Yang, but is very interested in the alchemy skills performed by Lu Yang, and wants to know more about the Alchemy Academy through Lu Yang. Lu Yang's character seems a bit strange. In the martial arts arena, he was submissive and seemed a little timid in the face of Luzioki's tricks. In the martial arts arena, he punched hard, and the opponents he hit basically had no room to fight back. Luzioki found his polite manner very interesting, as it was exactly the same as that of a counselor who failed to live up to expectations. I deliberately teased him a few words, but he just blushed and said nothing, nor did he refute. For players with such social fear attributes, Lu, who has the talent of being a social bull, is naturally able to control him. It was easy to get the information he wanted from his mouth. In fact, the alchemy school is an emerging major. 80 years ago, this college had not yet been born. At that time, all abilities of adventurers were basically related to dungeons. The output of skills, equipment, and props all depends on the copy and the appearance. Although the materials dropped by monsters have high research value, few people can actually use them. At this time, the first strong man of the sun in the Dragon Kingdom announced his nearly 200 years of research results to the world for free. He called the technology he studied, alchemy. In fact, the Panlong Wall of the Dragon Kingdom is also related to this technology, and it can be called the prototype of alchemy. The adventurer thought of an ingenious way. Alchemy is to study the properties of things, extract their essence and remove the dross, and combine the characteristics of all things in a mysterious way to achieve the effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2 or even 3. They have transformed the rules understood by their predecessors into alchemical formulas. Ordinary adventurers who want to acquire skills can only learn them through the skill books produced by the dungeon. And such an incredible ability naturally requires paying an extra price. All in all, alchemy is a universal skill created by adventurers. However, using this method to create skill books is very harmful to those who have mastered the skills. The way of heaven is to make up for the deficiency when there is excess damage, the way of man is to make up for the deficiency when there is damage. Alchemy is a technology that has gradually matured after the emergence of Panlongbai, based on continuous research and development. He can use raw materials to make various machines and give them attributes, making them extremely destructive and intelligent. The skills in the alchemy series were developed by themselves. Treasures that were created by chance and coincidence are almost impossible to reproduce. But to reach his level, one must not only have a good understanding of various refining materials, but also be proficient in mechanical principles and programming. It's just an exchange of equal value. In the most serious case, the adventurer attribute of the person who imprinted skills will be affected. It is worth mentioning that its intensity depends entirely on your perception of things. Some family adventurers will also hire them to convert the advanced skills they have learned into skill books, and keep them to pass down in the family. Developed to the extreme, it can even give them life. So few people would do this unless absolutely necessary. Sun adventurers are strong men who understand the rules to the extreme. Yes, you are not mistaken. Not only do we need to know what is happening, but we also need to know why it is happening. Just like Liu Yang, what he is good at is mechanical refinement. What is alchemy? They are able to condense their lifelong learning into new skills. This unlucky guy may be the material itself, that is, a common one-time prop, it may be the user, or it may be other things. That is to pass on this price to others through the formation. But it will be different after reaching the sun level. This often results in the proficiency of the skills originally mastered being reduced or even incomplete. Otherwise, even if you master the alchemy skills, what you refine will be just a mold or a doll. But in the hands of an adventurer who is good at alchemy, through the alchemy formula, you can transform the alchemy you have developed into skills. You don't need to understand the rules, just use them. The content of alchemy itself is even more all-encompassing. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 204. After some understanding, Luzioki, who was originally very interested, felt a little hesitant. Is alchemy strong? Very strong. For Luzaoki, it can even be called invincible. His own talent determines that he has an almost endless supply of materials, which is almost endless. And the alchemy props he made must be 999 plus. When fighting with others, you can almost use the crowd tactics to drown everything. Moreover, Luzaoki herself is different from Lu Yang, who looks like he has no strength to restrain a chicken. His fighting power can be said to be absolutely invincible under the sun. Just imagine. When Luzaoki was dueling with others, he raised his hand, and thousands of ex machinas slowly came out of the formation beside him, changing forms and aiming at the opponent. Just asking, are you panic? Then after finally waiting for you to break through the siege and come to Luzaoki's side, you can't wait to end the battle. But he found that Luzaoki slowly pulled out the dagger, applied a layer of buff to himself, and shouted, Dimasha. Then a sea of swords rose from the spot. Tisk tisk tisk. The picture is so beautiful, I can't even think about it. However, is alchemy so easy to study? Luzaoki learned that Lu Yang's family had been exposed to alchemy for generations. Lu Yang was trained as an alchemist since he was a child. In addition, his awakened talent perfectly matched the existence of alchemy, which made his combat power soar and become a being who stands at the pinnacle of the academy. It took several generations of training and more than 10 years of hard work to achieve the current results. And what about Luzaoki? Now he even joins the Alchemy Academy and starts learning alchemy-related knowledge. Even if his intelligence is several times that of ordinary people. So how long will it take for him to catch up with Lu Yang on this road? 1 year? 2 years? Or 10 years? Then again. So what if he catches up? Lu Yang's current combat power is certainly good, and his skills are also very cool. But in the hands of serious Luzaoki, he couldn't last even 1 round. It actually only took Luzaoki just half a year to achieve his current strength. In this case, why should he sacrifice the near for the distant? How can you be a top student if you don't use plugins that you are good at? Although he was indeed a top student before. But when it comes to alchemy, he is just a novice who has not yet started. He had the time to learn alchemy, so he might as well practice hard, enter the Yuan Shen stage as soon as possible, download a few more copies to get more cowhide equipment, and then improve his skills, which would be enough to crush the boss of Sun Yao. After figuring out this joint, Luzaoki breathed a sigh of relief and calmed down. However, I don't have to learn it, but I can't understand it. So as not to suffer the consequences of being uneducated. Adhering to the principle of asking more questions and learning more, Luzaoki still enthusiastically took the unlucky Lu Yang to learn more about alchemy. On the second day, Luzaoki arrived at the martial arts arena early. Because they have to participate in the competition, the counselors have asked for leave in advance for them. Otherwise, Luzaoki, who has not earned any credits, will be in debt. To his surprise, there were many people who came earlier than him. First of all, Zhang Yang, who was covered in tendon flesh, seemed to have endless energy and nowhere to vent. He was currently holding a huge stone pillar and humming and exercising on the field. And the huffing sound he made was the first thing to attract Luzaoki's attention. The other one is Lin Qingqing, a bespectacled girl holding a book. Although her eyes were hidden under her glasses, Luzaoki could clearly sense her vague hostility. Luzaoki still couldn't figure out why she was so hostile to him. Didn't he just look at her glasses twice? We are all classmates, so we can't be so stingy, right? The last person is the talkative Li Laban from the Ranger Academy. His originally taciturn appearance was actually just a disguise. After you get a little familiar with it, you will find that once he opens his mouth, the nonsense is like a torrential river, continuous, and like the Yellow River overflowing, it is out of control. It is precisely because of this that others basically dare not talk to him. This also caused him to lose interest and stand alone in the corner, staring blankly at the sky without knowing why. Luzaoki said hello to everyone, and not long after, Director Who came. He smiled and said, "It seems that everyone is quite enthusiastic about training. They are all here so early." He glanced at it and asked strangely, "Huh? Where is Liu Yanggren? Isn't he here yet? Come on, come on." As soon as he finished speaking, a panting voice came from the door. Liu Yang ran over sweating profusely. When he walked in front of everyone, he bowed at 90 degrees before he spoke. "I'm sorry, I'm late. I have to say, this guy is really polite. I was just walking on the road and saw an old man lying aside. I couldn't help but help him." Liu Yang awkwardly explained his experience. Upon hearing this, Lu Zioki couldn't help but feel happy. "Yes, you don't need to tell me, I can relate to the plot behind it. You unlucky guy, you dare to help the old man who fell on the roadside? Isn't this blackmail? Laughing to death. Even though I have 5,000 years of cultural heritage, I dare not reach out and touch the old man lying on the ground. Can't help. Can't help a little." Sure enough, as soon as Liu Yang reached out his hand, the old man immediately came to rely on him. As soon as the incident started, the old man's son came over with people. As a result, he, who was already somewhat introverted, was left speechless by the arrogant and unreasonable old man and his family. Fortunately, the police officer arrived in time and could tell at a glance that this family was a habitual offender. Pointing to the camera next to the street light, and with some kind words, he finally persuaded the gang of scoundrels to retreat. It also gave Liu Yang a vivid social practice lesson. It was just a few words, and everyone understood what he had just experienced. There were expressions of sympathy and outrage. Director Who didn't say anything. Instead, he coughed and said, "Okay, today's sparring starts with Lin Qingqing and Lu Zioki. You two, come on stage and get ready." As soon as she finished speaking, Lin Qingqing, who had been impatient for a long time, put away her book and teleported to the martial arts field, looking at Lu Zioki with fierce fighting intent in her eyes. Lu Zioki shrugged and lightly jumped into the martial arts arena, already holding a dagger in his hand. "Humph, let me see your true ability." Lin Qingqing let out a wanton laugh, and a staff slowly appeared beside her. "Be careful, don't use your full strength, you might die." Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 205. Wow! You girl with glasses is so arrogant. Lu Zioki's eyes widened. This was the first time someone said such a thing to him. "What do you mean if you don't use all your strength, you might die?" "I'm not bragging, if I try my best. Everyone present must die." Lu Zioki's thoughts turned over and over again, but in reality, only a short breath passed. Lin Qingqing's staff lit up slightly, and then it started to rain lightly. In the blink of an eye, the raindrops condensed into ice and hit Lu Zioki's head and face. Lu Zioki took a step forward slowly and slowly raised the dagger. The next moment, everyone's eyes widened. Because countless spikes condensed by tiny ice crystals were attracted by an invisible force, they hit the dagger raised by Lu Zioki and turned into nothingness. This is a secret technique. Director Who was a little doubtful of his own eyes. It looks like a blocking skill anyway. And it's still a relatively high-end one. But it's not over yet. Lu Zioki shook the sword slightly, and a transparent sword energy shot out from the tip of the dagger. In the blink of an eye, one sword energy turned into 6, and they quickly passed through the martial arts arena and headed straight for Lin Qingqing. Lin Qingqing was shocked when she saw him using this method for the first time. However, the flickering mana shield on her body was not a simple matter, and it easily intercepted the sword energy. Lu Zioki was not surprised at all when he saw this scene. Although the damage of his forced vibration sword during counterattack depends on the enemy's skill damage blocked by him and his own attack damage. In other words, the more powerful the enemy's previous skills are, and the more powerful the skills he uses in counterattack, the more terrifying the damage of the counterattack will be. In this counterattack, he only used an ordinary blow without any accompanying skill effects. The skills Lin Qingqing released before were only used to harass him, with the purpose of interrupting his skill release. As everyone knows, Lu Xiaoqi's skills are all instantaneous, and her tactics are destined to fail. But this was not the purpose of Lu Xiaoqi's move. Lin Qingqing was relieved to see that the shield blocked Lu Xiaoqi's counterattack. At the same time, Lu Xiaoqi had turned into a wisp of breeze and appeared behind her silently. With just one stroke of the sword, her magic shield was pierced. Then Lu Xiaoqi turned the sword head and hit Lin Qingqing's head hard with the hilt. "What are you arrogant about? Give me a headshot." Snored. "I, Lu Xiaoqi, never hold grudges, because if I have any grudges, I will avenge them on the spot." But Lu Xiaoqi's headshot was in vain. Lin Qingqing suddenly disappeared from the spot, and then appeared dozens of meters away. Her face was a little pale, and she looked at Lu Xiaoqi with lingering fear as the sword hilt was knocked empty, with a surprised look on her face. It turned out that the moment Lin Qingqing's magic shield was broken, an inexplicable alarm bell rang in her heart. Even though she didn't realize anything at the time, she still subconsciously believed in women's intuition, a love transfer, and moved to the side. After moving dozens of meters, when she turned around, she discovered that Lu Xiaoqi had appeared at her original location at some point. She immediately understood what was going on, and her face turned pale with fright. "I underestimated you." Lin Qingqing's originally careless expression became cautious. As she kept retreating, she held the staff in both hands and began to sing. Lu Xiaoqi didn't intend to show too much of her abilities, so when she saw her retreating, she couldn't help but have a smirk on her face. At this moment, she was squatting on the ground with her head in her hands, looking at Lu Xiaoqi with tears in her eyes, and an angry look on her face. If he hadn't released his skills at this moment, he would probably have suffered a lot of backlash. At the same time, the fire form special effect of Power of the Four Poles was activated, and Lin Qingqing felt an invisible fire sneaking into her body, burning away her mental power in an instant. I saw the bright gem on the staff glowing slightly, and a brilliant light shot out. Why doesn't this style look similar? Obviously, he was a bit puzzled by Lu Xiaoqi's ability that Yun Danfengking showed during the sparring. Why does it feel like the style of the game has changed after a good game? His powerful magic power added to the power of the five-color divine stone he refined, easily dispelling the small skills Lin Qingqing released in a hurry. After saying that, he glanced at Lu Xiaoqi in surprise. Earth wall, ice shield, fire prison, thunder. See, this is what happens when a mage is approached. I chase you, I catch up with you, I will hum you. Also, aren't you an adventurer from the secret academy? Then he flicked his backhand and gave Lin Qingqing a brain bust. In fact, it should have been accompanied by real damage equal to the amount of mental energy consumed by her mana burning. Be careful, if you don't surrender, I may give you a concussion. You can only be manipulated and bullied by others. Ahem, okay, classmate Lin, please come down. Classmate Lu won this sparring match, Director Hu said helplessly. Lu Xiaoqi returned the favor in the same way, with a wanton laugh at the corner of his mouth, and looked at the girl with glasses in a joking manner. Lin Qingqing chanted and backed away. Various lights rose up where she passed, forming various magic blocks. But no matter what kind of spell, Lu Xiaoqi could turn it into nothing with just a flick of his dagger. Ouch! Lin Qingqing was in pain, and her head suddenly became red and swollen. She couldn't help but let go of her hand, and the staff fell to the ground with a clack. Why are you so fat? The three people in the audience. Previous information only showed that he had a very powerful summoned beast. When he caught up with Lin Qingqing in a few steps, she didn't care that the spell in her hand was not fully formed yet, and cast it directly on Lu Xiaoqi. Lu Xiaoqi raised her right hand, clasped her middle finger with her thumb, and breathed a sigh of relief, ready to play. Lu Xiaoqi didn't dodge or dodge, and snuffed out the light with one stroke. With a bang, he entered the fire form of 4 poles, his whole body covered with a layer of blazing flames, and then he exerted force on his feet and rushed towards Lin Qingqing quickly. Isn't this guy specializing in secret arts? I won't. Lin Qingqing gritted her teeth and looked at Lu Xiaoqi with a look of heroic sacrifice. Lu Xiaoqi shrugged disapprovingly. But Lu Xiaoqi showed mercy and cancelled it, thus sparing her life. You still won't surrender. This is completely inconsistent with the characteristics he is showing now. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 206. Director who announced the results of the sparring. Although Lin Qingqing was a little angry, she still did not refute. The flames surrounding Lu Xiaoqi's body slowly dissipated as the 4 poles' power was cancelled, and he raised his head to look at the other party. The girl with glasses had a swelling on her forehead and her mental energy was almost exhausted. Due to the reduction of her mental power, her condition was a bit sluggish, and her slightly thin body was crumbling. She slowly bent down to pick up the staff that fell on the ground and held it in her arms. Just this movement made her face look even paler, as if she was going to faint in the next moment. Seeing how pitiful she was, Lu Xiaoqi couldn't help but say, "Hey, do you want me to treat you? I feel like you are dying." Lin Qingqing couldn't help but widen her eyes when she heard this. Her face became pale with a trace of blood, and she snorted angrily, "I don't want you to pretend to be kind here. Let's go." After saying that, Lin Qingqing took out a bottle of comprehensive potion from the parcel column and drank it in small sips. Although the stimulating effect of the potion was not immediate, it was enough to cheer her up and restore her complexion. Seeing this situation, Lu Xiaoqi could only shrug and slowly walk down the martial arts field. "Humph, you don't know a good person's heart." Lin Qingqing was obviously unable to start the next sparring session in her current state, so Director Hu could only announce a break. However, it is obviously not advisable to rely on potions for recovery. But there was obviously only one person at the scene who had mastered the secret technique of recovery, Lu Xiaoqi. Based on Director Hu's understanding of the girl with glasses, she would definitely not accept Lu Xiaoqi's help after knowing that Lu Xiaoqi had a problem with her. So he sighed, took out his cell phone and made a call. Not long after, a rather feminine woman came over. When you see her, you won't find her stunning or attractive. But you will think from the bottom of your heart that a woman should be like her. She has a pair of curved eyebrows, a pair of talking eyes, a pair of delicate red lips, and a head of black and shiny hair. Mature, charming, and exuding feminine charm. There was not much expression on her face. She walked charmingly to Director Hu, her slim body gently bent down, and bowed to Director Hu to show respect. "Director Hu, are you looking for me?" Her red lips parted slightly, but her voice was a little hoarse, making her look very sexy. Director Hu nodded, "Help that girl restore her status." He gave simple instructions. The woman glanced at the little girl on the stage who was meditating with her eyes closed, nodded, slowly walked forward, raised her hand, and the crystal light scattered. Thanks to this light, the girl's spirit was slightly shaken and she seemed to be improving. When the woman saw clearly the big blue bump on the girl's forehead, she couldn't help but frown slightly. Who hit this? Isn't it too ignorant to start with this? This is just sparring. The woman didn't say this part of the sentence, but there was a somewhat dissatisfied expression on her face. After all, there is only one girl among the 5 students. Why are these guys so ignorant of compassion? Such a cute little girl is willing to do something serious. Don't you know how to give in? Really? Of course, Director Who shouted quickly. If he didn't stop and the girl refused to admit defeat, Master Luzaoki said he would give her a righteous iron fist and turn her into a panda with eyes. See if she still dares to stare at him. After everyone heard this, they couldn't help but look at Luzaoki. The woman immediately found the culprit, but she didn't say anything. She just glared at Luzaoki, then turned back and concentrated on treating Lin Qingqing. As the woman murmured a mysterious tone, the light release slowly soothed the girl with glasses. The expression on Lin Qingqing's face suddenly relaxed a lot. She opened her eyes slightly and saw the woman standing on her side. Her expression became even more relaxed, and she slowly closed her eyes again. 2.5 years. It must be 2.5 years. She nodded slightly and revealed the matter. Luzaoki nodded and admitted his identity. He moved the topic to other places in an attempt to continue to draw the relationship between the two closer. Lin Qingqing's complexion has returned to its original state, and the swelling on her forehead has disappeared. There is no love-hate story between Boss Ximen and MS Pan in this world. Jin Lian couldn't figure out why he called her teacher Pan, so she just thought he was mistaken. Hello, my name is Jin Lian, and I am the school nurse. Nice to meet you, classmate Lu. Hey, it was a rain in June. Luzaoki coughed and said, Ahem, I'm sorry, Teacher Jin, I made a mistake. He just put a mysterious smile on his face and hummed a secret that he couldn't tell. Otherwise, how could he have such outstanding secret skills at such a young age? But when she walked up to Luzaoki and saw Luzaoki's face clearly, her eyes lit up again and she couldn't help shouting, You are Luzaoki. For another example, how did he meet a certain lady named Wang? After the woman's treatment was over, she looked at the girl carefully, as if to judge whether her condition had fully recovered. How? Do you know me? When he got there, he started to gossip and asked Luzaoki questions. Seeing his expression, Jin Lian felt a little regretful, but she did not continue to ask further. She wanted to educate this bastard who didn't know the importance of his actions, and asked him why an ordinary sparring partner would do such a cruel thing to a little girl. Even though she had a straight face at this moment, she still exuded a charming and slightly seductive look. For example, when did he start learning the secret technique? The woman's face immediately changed 180 degrees. A smile appeared on her originally slightly angry face, and she stretched out her hand to Luzaoki. Luzaoki felt a little melancholy. Luzaoki was quick to speak. After confirming, she strode towards Luzaoki's direction with great momentum. But I thought in my heart, okay Panjinlian, I know Panjinlian. Finally, he carefully tested Luzaoki's talent and asked if his talent was related to secret arts. Instead, he started to get close to Luzaoki with a little enthusiasm, but Luzaoki responded with a little discomfort. However, he didn't reach out to hit the smiling person. When people said this, he had no choice but to reach out and shake the woman's hand in cooperation, and said, Hello, Teacher Pan, I am Luzaoki. Luzaoki did not answer this question. Woman? Jin Lian said seriously, Classmate Lu, my surname is not Pan, my surname is Jin, and my name is Jin Lian. The woman's treatment was quick and lasted about 2 minutes. Luzaoki murmured in his heart. He thought this woman would rush up and scold him. Judging from your expression just now, you didn't look happy at all. Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 207. As for Jin Lian's previous purpose of aggressively looking for Luzaoki, she had long been thrown to Java. Lin Qingqing's injury? Are you kidding me? Luzaoki's secret skills are far superior to hers. How could it be possible for Lu Xiaoqi to be injured when she could treat the injuries? As for why there is no treatment, Jinlian said that she was not a gossipy person and did not bother to ask. Besides, if Lu Xiaoqi takes action, won't she lose the chance to get to know him? Lin Qingqing recovered quickly after being treated by Jinlian, and then the next game began. Facing Li Leiban, who was extremely fast and had full 6th attribute points, Lin Qingqing obviously didn't have a good way to deal with it. He hurriedly dealt with it for several rounds. After his teleportation entered CD and his shield was worn down by the opponent, he had no choice but to surrender. Her small skills pose no threat at all to Li Leiban, who is extremely fast and can become invisible and eliminate his presence, and the chanting time of her big skills is very long. Often before it was released, he was interrupted by Li Leiban. Li Leiban seemed a little aggrieved when facing Lu Xiaoqi and Lu Yang, but facing such crispy mages, he showed off his authority to the fullest. As usual, after the battle, Director Hu commented on the performance of the two people. There were only 3 sparring matches that Director Hu did not comment on. There were 2 sparring sessions between Lu Xiaoqi and 1 between Lu Yang and Zhang Yang. Director Hu really has nothing to say about Lu Xiaoqi. So far, the strength Lu Xiaoqi has shown is still bottomless, making it unclear whether it is true or not. Whether it is secret techniques or close combat, there are no flaws. And the methods are also very outrageous. Of course, the most speechless thing is actually his character. As for the fight between Lu Yang and Zhang Yang, to be honest, even if Director Hu himself put himself in the corresponding situation, he couldn't have done better than the two of them. Zhang Yang's position is that of a macho man who is extremely hard. Maximize the defense to the extreme, and then you can unleash your attacks to your heart's content. His shortcoming is that he is afraid of being kited and controlled. But he doesn't need to say more about this, Zhang Yang understands it himself. Not to mention Lu Yang. To defeat him, unless he takes it lightly or crushes him with absolute strength, no one can do anything to him until his items are exhausted. As for the glasses girl and Li Leiban, there is obviously a lot of room for improvement. It can be easily seen through the game between the two. Lin Qingqing's methods are somewhat single, with no restricted skills. Although Li Leiban won easily, his shortcomings in attack power were still exposed. Although he actually has a big move at his side, he can't just use it when facing everyone, right? Are you going to use Qing troops in your next dungeon? So how do you deal with the boss? Therefore, Director Hu suggested that they enrich their methods. Lin Qingqing's last battle was with Zhang Yang. There is almost nothing to say about this fight. Lu Xiaoqi finally saw what wank means. Lin Qingqing's skills were absorbed by Zhang Yang, but they did not cause any harm to Zhang Yang. Instead, he became more energetic. He looked a bit taller than before, and his whole body was covered with terrifying silver. Arrogance. What is this called? This calls for you to hit me. The more you hit me, the more excited I become. Lin Qingqing was actually aware of the outcome before the fight, but it was not her character to lose without fighting. She had to make one last attempt no matter what. So even though Zhang Yang was standing there motionless, he put on a posture that allowed her to attack as much as she wanted, provocation method. She couldn't help but attack him. As expected, neither the small skills she released nor the big move she released after chanting for a long time could cause any damage to Zhang Yang, and would only increase the momentum he accumulated after being attacked. After reaching a limit, Zhang Yang just let out a light drink, opened and closed his left and right hands, struck each other with both palms, and performed a classic Hulk slash on Lin Qingqing. A huge shockwave swept across the scene, directly knocking Lin Qingqing, who had nowhere to dodge, to the audience. Zhang Yang probably controlled his strength, and the power was not too big or too small. It just hit the bespectacled girl's mana shield to the point of danger, but the whole person was not harmed at all. After launching this attack, Zhang Yang's accumulated momentum was vented and he returned to his previous state. This battle has nothing to comment on. The whole process was just Lin Qingqing's personal magic show, throwing in a bunch of splendid skills, but all of them had the opposite effect on Zhang Yang. Zhang Yang, on the other hand, only took one shot and knocked Lin Qingqing off the tens of thousands square meters of martial arts arena, winning a clean victory. After this sparring session, it was Lu Xiaoqi's turn to play again. Lin Qingqing's sparring has been completed. Next, Lu Xiaoqi should face Li Leiban and Zhang Yang respectively. Director Hu cheered up and planned to observe carefully and feel out this kid's bottom. But Li Leiban also helped him. He waved his hand as soon as he came on the court and said with a serious face, "I will abstain from this sparring. Because I haven't found a way to deal with Mr. Lu, I personally feel. Ahem, okay, since you voluntarily admit defeat, let's go down and make Zhang Yang." Director Hu's face darkened, he interrupted his tirade, and called Zhang Yang to come on. Zhang Yang jumped onto the martial arts field, punched with his left hand and palmed his right hand, smiled heartily at Lu Xiaoqi and said, "I have heard of student Lu's name for a long time. I have seen classmate Lu's methods in the past 2 days and my hands are itching. Now I can finally have a good relationship with you, let's compete." Lu Xiaoqi also put away the dagger, pinched her knuckles, and nodded in agreement, "That's right. You are indeed a qualified sandbag, ahem, opponent. I can't wait too much." Zhang Yang shouted and turned on his talent, turning into a silver metal villain and rushing toward Lu Xiaoqi with dong 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 steps. Lu Xiaoqi stretched her muscles and moved towards Zhang Yang. The two of them intertwined their hands, and a trace of surprise flashed across Zhang Yang's face. He, a muscular tyrant, was actually suppressed by the slightly thin Lu Xiaoqi. Because Lu Xiaoqi has activated his skill power of the four-pole and transformed himself into the form of the earth. While his defense power has been greatly improved, his attacks also come with the majestic power from the earth veins. Although Zhang Yang's talent is strong and his own strength is not bad, how can he compete with Mother Earth? Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 208. Lu Xiaoqi suppressed the little silver man Zhang Yang with her absolute strength. A smirk flashed on his face, and the skill Arashi Yama was activated. The capture is determined successfully. The next second, with Zhang Yang's incredulous look and everyone's stunned expressions, Lu Xiaoqi lifted Zhang Yang high in the air. Then there was an inhumane slam. Boom. Duanlan. But this is just the beginning. Zhang Yang was still in a state of confusion after being thrown down. Before he could recover, Lu Xiaoqi lifted him high again. Boom. Duanlan. Boom. Sandanlan. To Lu Xiaoqi's surprise, Zhang Yang didn't lose the ability to resist after Sanduanlan, and was still struggling hard in an attempt to stand up. Although Lu Xiaoqi did not add his own weight to cause extra damage when using Lan Zhishan, but based on this S-level skill alone and Lu Xiaoqi's current terrifying attributes, this move is basically a normal adventurer. It's useless. Refer to a female assassin who was resurrected. And Zhang Yang was able to survive the third stage of Lan without any damage and still have the energy to struggle. Lu Xiaoqi's eyes lit up and she secretly praised the quality of this sandbag. Then he grabbed Zhang Yang's ankle. Arashi Yama activates again. Boom. 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 When Lu Xiaoqi let go of the unconscious Zhang Yang, there were only 2 big holes left on the left and right where he stood. Zhang Yang's talent was forced to be cancelled because he fell into a coma. He was huddled in a pothole in ragged clothes, looking innocent, weak and pitiful. Director Hu's eyes were dull. Even though he had anticipated how strong Lu Xiaoqi was as much as possible in his mind, he did not expect the scene to appear at all. A student recommended by the Secret Arts Academy knocked a top fighter from the Fighting Academy unconscious with his bare hands. You know, Zhang Yang is a top student in a top fighting academy known for his defense. The remaining 4 people were also shocked. The 3 teammates could hardly close their mouths. Damn it, you told me this is a new life. Or a new student who is good at secret arts. He just knocked Zhang Yang, who was known as the most defensive among the students in the school, unconscious in just a few strokes right under my nose. Jin Lian was also shocked. Her eyes widened and she looked at the scene in disbelief, her mind in confusion. What's going on? Is Mr. Lu's combat power value a little too outrageous? How come you were knocked unconscious in just a few seconds? Thinking of this, she looked at the girl with glasses and suddenly felt enlightened. It turns out that classmate Lu has actually shown mercy to the girl with glasses. Such a burly man couldn't resist classmate Lu's tossing, let alone this little girl with delicate skin and tender flesh. At this point, she couldn't help but feel ashamed for her previous misunderstanding of Lu Zhaoqi. Director who had come back to his senses, looked at the hole on the ground that Lu Zhaoqi had dug out, and the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. There is a reason why this martial arts arena is so strong and resistant to roughness. Because its material is refined and synthesized using rare copy materials. Although it is not precious, the price is quite high. The hole Lu Yang made yesterday has not been repaired yet. The funding application process has not been completed yet and cannot be repaired for the time being. As a result, 2 new holes were added today. Ahem, actually, what he didn't know was that it was precisely because Lu Zhaoqi saw that Lu Yang had destroyed the venue like that yesterday, and director who didn't even ask him for compensation, that's why he started destroying it today. It was just enough for him to have some fun, and he felt a little refreshed. After all, he had been restrained in front of him, fearing that the venue would be damaged and he would lose money. Even at this moment, Lu Zhaoqi is still worth tens of billions, and the materials in the package are equal to infinity without rounding. But such a waste of his wealth also made Lu Zhaoqi, who had grown up poor, feel heartbroken. But the look in Lu Zhaoqi's eyes was still full of fear. When the world was decided, Lu Zhaoqi waved his hand and struck out a stars shining. Others looked at Zhang Yang not with ridicule, but with sympathy. When he learned that director who would not let him compensate even if he damaged the venue, the joy of having sex for free was self-evident. The last sparring session has also begun. Then here comes the problem. It is known that Lu Zhaoqi has used Lanzishan 5 times in total. Others can create such a big hole, but I, Lu Zhaoqi, have to give you the entire hole. Li Laban vs Zhang Yang. The scene was awkward for a while. Especially those who have sparred with Lu Zhaoqi, they may even feel the same way. What is the area of the shadow in Zhang Yang's heart? After all, Lu Zhaoqi's abnormality is obvious to all. That's because their small bodies can't help but be rough. After some comfort from her, Zhang Yang finally calmed down a lot, and he was able to put a smile on his face when facing everyone. When he saw Lu Zhaoqi standing next to him, his first reaction was to shudder. He who was lying on the ground rolled and crawled out more than 10 meters away, looking at Lu Zhaoqi warily. Zhaoqi. If he hits him back and forth a few times like Zhang Yang. Otherwise, in this small venue, how could he Wan Jiangazong have enough trouble? The pit on the left is about 50 centimeters deep, and the pit on the right is 64 centimeters deep. Lu Zhaoqi had let them off before, but the reason for not using this method was simple. After repeated questioning by Director Hu, it was confirmed that his condition had basically recovered. However, he was still in control and did not act recklessly. But what makes people even more sympathetic is his tragic experience of being hit on the ground repeatedly. Lu Zhaoqi. If not, wouldn't Lu Zhaoqi lose 100 million after rounding off? Although it is indeed funny to announce that a top student in the fighting department was knocked unconscious by a new student who had not even entered the secret class yet. This guy seems to be scared of being thrown by himself. It will probably fall apart immediately. As a school doctor, Jin Lian not only uses her superb secret skills to help students heal their injuries, but also has some psychological knowledge that can help them recover from their psychological trauma and get out of their psychological shadows as quickly as possible. They also figured it out. In line with the principle that you are responsible for what you do, Zhang Yang, who was knocked unconscious by Lu Zhaoqi, should naturally be awakened by him. The gorgeous and dazzling secret technique once again stirred up thousands of stars. In the brilliant starlight, Zhang Yang let out an unbearable groan and slowly opened his eyes. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Global copy, My Talent is Called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 209. Boss, I want to buy a bouquet of flowers. The proprietress is a big sister in her early 30s with a graceful figure. She is lowering her head to take care of the delicate flowers in the flower shop. Hearing the sound, she subconsciously raised her head and her eyes lit up. I saw a sunny and handsome boy standing outside, seemingly looking at the flowers in the flower shop. A warm smile immediately appeared on her face and she asked diligently. Okay, handsome guy, which bouquet of flowers do you want to buy? Have you made your choice? Lu Zhaoqi, who was standing at the door of the flower shop, had a rare expression of hesitation on his face. His eyes wandered uncertainly in front of flowers such as roses, carnations, and tulips. The landlady is also a wonderful person who is good at observing people's emotions. Seeing Lu Zhaoqi's expression, she turned to ask again. Handsome boy, are you buying these flowers for your elders or for your girlfriend? Lu Zhaoqi shook her head. No, it's not an elder or a girlfriend, it's one of my sisters. Sister, the landlady chewed on the word, secretly trying to figure out what the customer meant, and said tentatively. If it's for my sister, we have freesias, lilies, hyacinths. It's a good choice to give to your sister. Lu Zhaoqi looked at the flowers she pointed at, her eyes fluctuated, but in the end she shook her head. His eyes were fixed on the roses. Can I give this as a gift? The landlady followed Lu Zhaoqi's eyes and glanced over. When she saw the romantic and passionate fiery red roses, she suddenly felt enlightened. Yo! Today's young people really know how to play. I already gave you red roses, so why should I be my sister? It's my sister's. That must be Sister Cheng. But she nodded with a smile on her face, yes. It's completely suitable. This bright red color represents passion, enthusiasm, and romance, and it is very suitable. Before she finished speaking, she was interrupted by Lu Zhaoqi sighing. But what if I'm afraid she won't accept it? Lu Zhaoqi's heart is actually quite complicated. Of course, his feelings for his sister needless to say, but how does his sister feel about him? He suddenly felt a little hesitant. Boss lady. Why is this expression of worrying about gains and losses so fat? Seeing this, the proprietress could only sigh and tell the truth. Actually, orders like this need to be booked in advance. Our flower shop doesn't have so much inventory now. If you want it now, I can only call you, someone will rush it for you. Seeing the sincerity of the landlady's words, Lu Zhaoqi looked at the time again, thought for a moment and nodded. Okay, no problem, I'll just come back and pick it up in 4 hours. It seems to be waiting for work, but in fact it is a helpless move. And for Zhang Yang, who transformed into a little silver man, his attack was nothing more than a tickle. For Li Laban, he will undoubtedly suffer a lot. Finally, director who couldn't stand it anymore and announced that the sparring between the two was over and it would be a draw. As a result, the young man paid the money without blinking an eye, and this time the landlady couldn't be bothered. The proprietress was overjoyed when she heard this. She had noticed before that this young man's dress and temperament were quite extraordinary. She knew he must be a big customer, but she never expected such a big deal. Luzioki shook her head. No, I can just take it away. You can do it first. When can it be done? She pondered for a moment and suggested tentatively, actually, you don't have to give red roses. Because his body bones are relatively fragile, he can only rely on his excellent speed to dodge Zhang Yang's attacks. Fortunately, he can use his natural ability to eliminate his own presence to evade. The boss lady quickly struck while the iron was hot and said, although white roses, as a kind of rose, symbolize pure and flawless love to a certain extent, when they are given to people close to you, they can also represent your most sincere blessings to friends and elders. Respect. Naturally, Luzioki had no idea what the landlady was thinking. He was in a good mood when he walked out of the flower shop. He hummed a song and walked slowly on the crowded streets in the bright sunshine. It was a rare opportunity to go shopping. Come to the street. Luzioki looked at the white roses, but her heart also moved. The two fought for almost an hour, but still couldn't decide the winner. Neither of them had a good way to defeat the other. 2 days have passed since the 5-person sparring session. Feelings, I still quoted a low price. He stood directly on the stage, quietly waiting for Li Laban to attack, and then used his skills to show off his moves. Give me a bouquet of 999 white roses. When he faced Li Laban, another shortcoming was exposed, he had no AoE skills. Sure enough, Luzioki agreed immediately after the lady boss mentioned the price and paid the deposit readily. This quick move made the lady boss a little surprised. The landlady breathed a sigh of relief, knowing that this large deal was basically concluded. Is this a confession? Luzioki thought for a while, then finally nodded and said, okay. Then let's take the white rose. As for Zhang Yang, he had already thought about the best way to deal with Li Laban, that is, to remain unchanged in the face of changes. Both sides have nothing to do with the other side and can only wait for the other side to make a mistake. White roses are also very good, symbolizing holiness, purity and respect. From the perspective of sending flowers to my sister, it is not impossible. Originally, she had planned to explain immediately when she saw Luzioki frowning and looking a little too expensive on his face, describing her difficulty in finding someone to tie flowers temporarily, and then give him a cheaper price. The last one of the day was really lackluster. You know, a white rose costs about 4 yuan, non-holiday price, but the more you buy, the more troublesome it will be to tie it up, and the price will also increase accordingly. The price of 999 white roses is about, it looks like, more than 6,000 or 7,000, and this young man doesn't look like he's good at bargaining at first glance. I'd like to quote 7,668 for myself. Isn't that too much? An agile assassin player faces an iron-walled warrior opponent. It might take a little longer, probably about 4 hours to get it done. The two discussed the details of the bouquet again, and finally talked about the price. But then she felt a little worried and said to Luzioki, it's okay to do it, but such a big flower is inconvenient to carry. Do you need me to arrange for someone to send it to you? Global copy, my talent is called Wind Spirit Moon Shadow. Author, Crying Boy Has Bad Luck. Chapter 210. 3 days of sparring passed by, perhaps because he saw results. After the sparring, Director Hu did not immediately start the next stage of training. Instead, he announced that everyone would have a holiday on the weekend and have 2 days of rest. Only then did Luzioki have time to go shopping. And he didn't just have a sudden whim, like a sudden headache, he wanted to send a big bouquet of roses to his sister for no reason. Actually, this is because my sister's birthday is coming. In fact, last week, Luzioki was already thinking about how to celebrate his sister's birthday. However, the sudden training interrupted his original plan, which made his preparations a little hasty. The 3 days of sparring allowed him to learn a lot, and it also allowed him to unknowingly ignore the passage of time while being highly concentrated. If I hadn't heard a classmate inadvertently mention, "Today is October 19th, time flies so fast," he probably hasn't come back to his senses yet. This can't be blamed on Luzaoki for not caring about her sister's birthday. Mainly because in the past 8 years, my sister's birthday has not been held grandly. At this time, not only would she not mention her birthday, but she would also deliberately downplay it. Because based on the previous conditions of the Lu family siblings, celebrating birthdays was obviously a quite extravagant act. Over the years, the two of them have long been accustomed to not celebrating their birthdays. Luzaoki suddenly wanted to celebrate her sister's birthday because she saw a boy on the school campus confessing his love to the girl in public on her birthday. He felt that he owed his sister a lot and wanted to surprise her with a birthday celebration. But because of a series of things, I am so busy today. Seeing that her sister's birthday is coming tomorrow, Luzaoki hurried out to pick out a gift for her sister. Luzaoki walked into the exquisite and complicated gift shop and was suddenly stunned when he looked at the dazzling array of items. To be honest, over the years, he really doesn't know what his sister likes. His sister has never shown her desire and pursuit of something in front of him. Because when Luzaoki appeared in her sister's field of vision, her sister's eyes were completely filled with only Luzaoki. Her emotions were completely controlled by him. Thinking of this, Luzaoki suddenly fell silent. "I feel a little bit blocked in my heart." He knew that his sister loved him, and he also loved her deeply. But he rarely puts himself in his sister's shoes and fully brings his own feelings into her role. Tonight's evening breeze is a little cool, with the chill of early autumn. Luzaoki came to the address in the message sent to him by his sister with a smile, and he was stunned even though he was far away. To be honest, my sister rarely sends messages asking him to pick her up. Because she always feels that she is a sister, older than her brother, and she cannot rely on her brother for everything. To put it bluntly, I just can't save face. This time, Luzaoki felt a little surprised and happy when she received a message from her sister asking Luzaoki to pick her up at the pet store here. He naturally hopes that his sister will become more and more dependent on him. But when he saw the scene in front of him, he finally understood why his sister suddenly asked him to pick her up. A gentle man with a gentle smile on his face was constantly talking to his sister. His earnest attitude and burning eyes were enough to prove his intentions. Even though the sister looked so sincere, she still couldn't stop the man's enthusiasm. Luzaoki felt a surge of anger in her heart. If it weren't for the fact that the man was still polite and didn't touch his sister, he must have taken out the dagger at this moment. Whenever that man acts frivolous, he will be greeted by countless colorful sword energies. In fact, Luzaoki also knew in her heart that this was inevitable. My sister is not my forbidden wife. Of course she has her own free space. Luzaoki has never interfered with her social life. Even if he didn't like the aunt who introduced his sister to a blind date before, he only complained verbally and never stopped his sister from interacting with others. And his sister also made him very reassured, and he was basically wary of strangers, especially strange men. Moreover, she kept everything Luzaoki said to her in her heart. As long as Luzaoki shows that she is unhappy, her sister will subconsciously reduce her contacts with that person. The most important thing is that the previous Lu family siblings were poor, and the elder sister was even more frail, always looking pale and coughing all the time. Very few people would bother her. Ordinary people would be too late to avoid her when they see her. Even kind-hearted people would mostly sympathize with her sister when they see her, and would not have other thoughts. But now that's all changed. After Luzaoki's hard work, her sister's food and clothing expenses are now the best among ordinary people. Her body, which has been weak all year round, is getting healthier and healthier under the care of Luzaoki, who does not hesitate to spend her own power. Nowadays, Lu Wanyi has a rosy complexion and is full of vitality. In addition, she happens to be in her youthful years, and her appearance is not to mention. It is not an exaggeration to say that the fish is like a fish and the goose is about to close up. Coupled with the best clothes and the best cosmetics that Luzaoki bought for her, even simple light makeup can make her charming and eye-catching. In fact, my sister was careful enough when going out today. She came out holding a black head and wore a mask the whole time. She only briefly combed her hair and didn't put on any makeup. Lu Wanyi originally planned to take Haida to the pet shop and ask the boss to help her clean it. I have to say something about Haida here. This silly dragon may have been pretending to be a dog for a long time, and it has really acquired some of the characteristics of a silly dog. It is so energetic that it often comes home covered in mud by doing mischief outside. Luzaoki was quite considerate of it. She thought that this silly dragon was not yet 1 year old and its childish behavior was excusable, so he simply repaired it and let it go. But I don't know if this stupid dog is forgetful and forgets to eat but not to fight, or because it feels good that Luzaoki has taken care of it, it still goes its own way and knowingly. This resulted in Luzaoki being chased around the house every 3 days, causing the entire family to feel uneasy. Later, my sister learned to behave. Don't wash your dirty black hair at home, because you are too busy, and Luzaoki will find out. Instead, spend some money to take it to a pet store and have it cleaned by the owner. As for Hitantio, it is obvious that he enjoys the bathing program with dedicated service, so he gets himself dirty more frequently. Does Luzaoki know about this? Of course he knows. He was not a fool, he just turned a blind eye when his sister was happy.